Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another session of our series on holiness. Last Thursday, we started off the series talking about our spiritual lives. Today, we are talking about our physical lives. For those of you who are following along at home with the Bible readings, the reading for today is Daniel chapter 1, verses 1 through 21. If you are wanting to pause the video at any time to think about answers, please feel free to do so. I will never know. If you would like to answer any of these questions, you can use the comment section on the YouTube page where this will be. You can use the church's Facebook page where a link will be posted. Please feel free to let me know your answers. I'm curious, genuinely. Let's begin today with the optional icebreaker questions. First question is, what is your favorite meal? If only I could say dessert. When I was a little kid, my older brothers joked about not wanting to have too much dinner because it would fill their dessert pockets. So until 6th, 7th grade, somewhere in that range, when I found out that the dessert pocket is not actually a part of the stomach and got really disappointed, my favorite meal was dessert because it has its own organ explicitly for that. I would have to say, though, that my favorite meal is dinner. Growing up, my family very rarely had breakfast together. It was sort of you get up, you have breakfast on your own. We were all getting up at different times, with me going to elementary school at some point along the elementary school line, both of my brothers being in middle school and high school, so they were getting up earlier to make it to school earlier. My dad, by the time I would be waking up, even in high school, would either be just heading out the door or would be already gone. My mom had breakfast some of the time with me, but we didn't have meals together. Lunch was hardly if ever had together. During school days, we ate at the designated lunch period, and on the weekends we kind of just ate whenever. So dinner was that one time when we could come together, we could eat together as a family, we could share in each other's daily experiences. The highs, the lows, everything like that. So definitely favorite meal has been and still is, probably always will be, dinner. Plus, when you think about it, celebratory meals, whether that's wedding receptions, Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas parties, they're all dinner-esque. So they either happen around dinner time or they are more extravagant than just your standard lunch, so they're dinner-like, I guess. So my answer is dinner. I'm curious what you all would say. And in my mind, dessert counts, but some people would argue that fact. Let me know what you think on that question. Second icebreaker question. As a teenager, what was the farthest you were ever away from home? As a teenager? I think the farthest... Sorry about that. I think the farthest I was ever away from home... Well, with my parents was probably Orlando, Florida. we went to Orlando, my parents and I, for my cousin's wedding. So, distance wise, yeah, that was the furthest I was ever away from home. As for without my parents, while I was a teenager, probably to my recollection, Mount Vernon, Kentucky, my freshman year of high school for our mission trip. We went to a summer camp that was under development for the blind called Christ Outreach for the Blind. The youth group at my home church, Grosse Ile Presbyterian Church, went to Mount Vernon, Kentucky for a week. We helped with cutting down a lot of excess shrubbery, mowing lawns, cutting wood, a lot of work like that. So I think that's the furthest I was during my teenage years without my parents. Anyway, so those are my answers. Let me know what your answers are. I'm curious. Those are the last of the icebreaker questions, so why don't we get down to the reading itself? Again, the reading is in the book of Daniel, chapter 1, verses 1 through 21. Listen now for the word of our Lord. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the articles of the temple of God. These he carried off to the temple of his God in Babylonia and put in the treasure house of his God. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring in some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility. Young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well informed, quick to understanding, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that they were to enter the king's service. Among these were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belteshazzar; to Hananiah, Shadrach; to Mishael, Meshach; and to Azariah, Abednego. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now God had caused the official to show favor and sympathy to Daniel, but the official told Daniel, "I am afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned you food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king should then have my head because of you." Daniel then said to the guard whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, "Please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see." So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wine they were to drink, and gave them vegetables instead. To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding to all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them in, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them. He found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom. And Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. This is the word of our Lord. Thanks be to God. Our first question is, why did Daniel ask the chief official for different food? For religious reasons, for physical reasons, cultural reasons, or he was a picky eater? How I understand it is it's religious reasons. Nothing about this necessarily designates him being a picky eater, in my mind, at least. Nothing really designates it being a cultural violation to eat royal food, or even for physical reasons. In my mind, I think it's religious reasons. The phrase "the Lord provides" was already circulating at that point in time. It was circulating even back in the time of the Israelites wandering the wilderness. So, probably in his attempt to stay true to his God, to stay true to the king of Judah as opposed to the Babylonian gods, he denied this royal treatment of wine and food from the royal table, saying, I don't need this to make it through. I have my God. You can give me basic vegetables and I'll be fine. That's how I see it. Please tell me if you think I'm wrong. Tell me if you think something else. I would love to hear other people's arguments. Our second question. What impresses you most about Daniel? His courage, his convictions, his choices, his convincing ability, or something else, an other? I'm tied between the first two. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of moxie to stand up to a king, particularly a king that has just overthrown your king. So the strength to stand up to such a power, not only is that not something that we always see, but his seemingly fearlessness in the midst of doing it. Tying then into his conviction that this is the right thing to do, that this is how he will stay faithful to Judah, to the God of Judah. I would say those two are kind of sort of tied into each other. So it's my answer is caught between those two. I can't decide which. Let me know what you all think. Question number 3. If Daniel lived in your world, how would he be viewed by your peers? He would fit right in. He would be eating alone. He would be admired. He would be ridiculed. My thought is Actually, I don't know. I feel he might be ridiculed. Something in me just tells me that he wouldn't go with the flow of things. He wouldn't naturally just do what everyone else is doing. He would do what was just right, do what was fully expressive of his faith in God in the real world, which would probably take the place of patriotism on a certain level, political dedications on a certain level. So I feel like he would be viewed as something of a black sheep, and he might be ridiculed for being maybe a little weird, having a little bit of a screw loose. That's my opinion, though, so please tell me if you disagree. Question number 4. What message does this story have for today? To be healthy, eat vegetables. We should abstain from drinking alcohol. We shouldn't defile our bodies. We shouldn't be afraid to be different. We should stand up for our convictions, or something else. Well, we should definitely eat vegetables to be healthy. Now, granted, that's coming from someone who, growing up, didn't even like the word vegetable, let alone all a good chunk of the foods that fall into that category. So, over time, I've started to gain a little bit of a taste for some vegetables and started to gain some level of a concern for not getting enough fruits, vegetables, balancing out my diet. So, I guess with time, things change. So, to be healthy, eat vegetables, that's a very plausible answer. Shouldn't necessarily abstain from drinking alcohol, but I mean, part of that is just personal preference. I abstained from drinking alcohol until I was proper drinking age, and at this point in time, I'm still drinking maybe 1 or 2 drinks per month. I do not drink that much at all. I don't see a need to, I guess. But I mean, a glass of wine every now and then, I see no problem with that. Defiling of bodies, I feel like that's kind of the hot button out of all of these, simply because different people would define defiling bodies in different ways. For some people, it would be body modifications, so tattoos, piercings, things like that. For others, defiling of bodies could be something more serious in terms of eating disorders, drug or alcohol abuse. Unprotected sex, just the list goes on. I feel like that's sort of a wide open category, and each definitely you should not defile your bodies, but because our bodies are holy, our bodies are made in God's image. But where that line is drawn as to what is or is not defilement is sort of the who knows kind of position. We shouldn't be afraid to be different. Hey, I think that's the one I would lean towards the most out of all of these, simply because as much as we are all the same on the inside physically, just in terms of we have the same organs, generally speaking, they're the same size and shape given age, whatever. At the same time, we're all different. Not everyone has the same shade of skin, not everyone has the same eye color, hair color, not everyone is the same sex. Everyone has something that makes them truly unique, and that's what makes, what I would view as an art form, God's art form. That's what makes humanity so beautiful and so incredible, that the Bible says we are created in God's image. The fact that God could have an image that is so widespread in terms of skin color, eye color, hair color, sex, personality, height, weight, different things like that. It's incredible. And I personally am of the party that just as we are different, just as we are all human, we should celebrate our uniqueness as well. So that's the one I would lean towards, personally. Last option outside of the other was you should stand up for your convictions. Not always the easiest thing to do, but I would agree with that. People should never be afraid to stand up for what they believe. Our beliefs are our beliefs. So if we believe that we should be abstaining from drinking, then by all means, we should abstain from drinking. However, there does come a point where we have life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. But once we start trouncing on other people's liberties, other people's choice to drink alcohol, just throwing that as an example, myself being kind of that person. I tried to not have beer at my high school graduation, but my parents convinced me otherwise. People should be free to stand by their convictions and to do as they please up to a certain point. I mean, once it starts getting into self-harm, then maybe a little bit of stepping in and trying to help the situation is needed, but so long as no self-harm is happening, maybe I'm just rambling. Anyway, let me know what you think. Question number 5. Which of the following choices best describes your physical health? I worry about it. I don't give it a second thought. I do what I can to stay healthy. I am probably not as conscientious as I should be. I take it for granted. I give it top priority. For me, I do what I can to stay healthy. I go for walks as often as I can. I try to avoid eating too many sweets. I try to have a balanced meal, lunch, dinner, breakfast. Try to make sure that I have enough fiber, calcium, vitamins, all of these things in my diet. I do what I can to stay healthy. So there's probably more that I could do, but I do what I can, what is within my ability at this point in time. So that's my answer. Let me know what you all think. Question number 6. What do you need most in relation to the physical area of your life? A better diet, regular exercise, more sleep, to give up a bad habit, or something else? My diet is pretty good. A few sweets every now and then, but nothing over the top, not like an entire carton of ice cream every night. Probably a little bit more regular exercise. I used to go running fairly often. I haven't done that as of late, partly because of just how dark it still is early in the morning for me to work out and go for a run before work like I used to do. And also the hills in the area where I live, when you're dealing with, in some areas, up to 12% grades, that's not exactly something that is, and you're used to running on flat surfaces or more or less flat surfaces, that's a huge adjustment. So I think that's kind of deterred me, unfortunately. My wife and I have talked about going to the gym, but because of this whole pandemic thing, the gym is closed down. So we've started looking into other potential workout equipment that we could get relatively cheap that we could still do the same exercises as we would at the gym for cheaper in the long run. So we're currently looking into that. So yeah, for me it's more regular exercise. Let me know what you all think. What do you need in relation to your physical life to get the most out of it? Question number 7. Which of Daniel's attributes would help you most in your quest for healthy habits? Self-discipline, conviction, courage, or something else? I don't know about self-discipline. Probably courage. I haven't always been the best at standing up for what I believe, kind of putting my foot down and standing up for those without a voice, kind of sticking to my guns essentially. So I could probably use a little bit of that. I could probably learn from that myself. What do you all think? Which of Daniel's attributes could help you most? Again, choices are self-discipline, conviction, courage, or something else. Let me know in the comment section. Question number 8. What have you found best when confronted with something you know you should refuse? Okay. Sorry, that question confused me. Okay, leave, just say no thanks, explain myself, or something else. For me, I feel like the 3 options given are ones that I have generally used as like a first, second, third step. If I'm offered something, my first reaction is to just say no thanks. If it goes beyond that, they still try to push it, I would explain myself, and if they're still not accepting it, they're still pushing it, that's obviously not a person I would want to be around. That's not a situation I would like to be in. I would do my best to leave. Just say, nope. You're trying to push binge drinking, you're trying to push drug usage, you're trying to push whatever it might be, an unhealthy act or a personality change that I might not agree with, whatever it is. I feel like I would go with all 3 of those depending on what I have previously done. So start with just saying no thank you, move on to an explanation if saying no is not enough, and then if the explanation is not enough, if explaining myself doesn't just cut it off, say, okay, you're not someone that I want to be dealing with right now. I'm leaving, and then walk away.
Let me know what you all think.
The last question is, how can this group pray for you? As always, if you do have joys, concerns, prayer requests, please leave those in the comment section, either on Facebook or on YouTube. If you have, or if you would like to email them to me, please feel free to shoot me an email. I would be happy to call you up or share joys, concerns in Sunday worship. Until tomorrow, have a blessed day, and we will pick up tomorrow talking about vocational life. So, have a good day, stay healthy, stay safe, and hopefully enjoy the weather once this fog lifts.